Welcome back to What the Prompt, where we pull back the curtain on real AI playbooks by moving auto retail forward. Before we kick off, a quick ask. Hundreds of you are watching, listening, staying through to the end, but many aren't hitting subscribe. If you value raw future of auto retail, hit that subscribe, drop a comment, and share this one with colleagues in the business. That's the fuel that keeps this movement alive. Today's guest is Dave Anderson, founder of Evenflow AI, the company tackling one of the biggest headaches in every dealership: service scheduling, capacity, and technician load. His platform claims to not just smooth the schedule, but to unlock real revenue we've been leaking for decades. And he's here to show us how. Dave, how's it going? You doing well today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here, Michael.
You know, Dave, you keep popping up on the radar. I just had to reach out to you because you're making headways. You're making life in the service drive easier. Tell me a little bit about yourself so we can connect with our audience.
I'm, by most people's standards, still a baby or new to the industry. I didn't grow up in automotive. I have a PhD in applied math. I left academia a number of years ago, took a couple of twists and turns, and ended up at United Airlines. And then a little over 10 years ago, I left United and started working with partners on building our own businesses that take one of the few things airlines do really well, and that's sell every seat on the plane and applying it to different contexts. So we did things with hotels, golf courses, doctors' offices, and surgery centers. And a few years ago, I started Evenflow with the hope to marry those best practices with the unique dynamics in automotive service.
Definitely makes sense. And we're glad to have you in auto retail. David, service has always been the back half that keeps the lights on, but the systems are broken. What pain points did you see that made you go that direction for service?
Like fundamentally, it's a super challenging problem, right? Like, there's a lot of variability. You know, Monday's busier than Tuesday, but not every Monday, right? 9 a.m. is busier than 11 a.m., not every 9 a.m. Customers no show. They walk in, they're late, they're early, right? So all this like variability and uncertainty is a challenge. And I think the number one challenge that I see coming in is also like what people schedule for isn't what leave on their repair order. So like the most simplest example, right? I have 100,000 miles on a Honda Odyssey and I book an oil change. It's extremely unlikely I'm leaving with that oil change. But if you load the shop on the oil change, you're way like mismatching the demand to the capacity there. So that like unpredictability is a real sort of challenge that the industry's been trying to face.
That sounds like some really deep building engineering. You call it capacity aware scheduling. Can you break that down for us in plain dealer English? What does that mean in a service drive?
At the most fundamental level, like what we're trying to do is match the flow of the demand, you know, customer vehicles with the technician production capacity. So think of it as almost like a conveyor belt into the factory of the technician so that the cars show up at the right time that the team can fully service the vehicles there. And so in order to do that, you have to predict the true demand of every car, which is you know, what I talked about, like that 100,000 mile oil change. Well, how much labor time will that actually take? And then translate that into clock time, because technicians have different efficiencies and proficiencies, right? So like a 2-hour flag job could only be like an hour and a half of clock time based on the proficiency. So it's trying to like load that true demand and then balancing it off of the true production capacity of when technicians roll on schedule during the day or roll off, and then across time of day, day of week, and just trying to almost
Hmm.
like the visualization I think of is like a perfectly packed Tetris board where like all
Got
the
it.
work comes in and there's no like, black space of unused time, right? Or nothing's
Yeah.
overloaded and you lose, so.
Let's get real for dealers listening.
Yeah.
How much money is being left on the table when tech hours go unsold or scheduling is bottlenecked?
I sort of conservatively say that the average dealership gets 70% of their revenue potential. And the only pushback I ever get when I tell a dealer that is like, you're wrong, we only get 60 or we only get 50. So there's a significant amount. We've seen it in the data and here anecdotally, like when they get overloaded in the morning, like too much shows up in the drive, all they can do is try to push cars through and unit production goes down. So they sell less hours per job or the dollars per RO go down like that. That's like, we've seen that, statistically in the data. And then you've got time where it's like, I call it spoiled tech time, like the technician's on the clock, but there's no work for them to flag. And in the airline world, that's like, you leave the gate with an empty seat. Like you're not selling at 30,000 feet in the air. You just lost that opportunity here. So, that,
Right.
that in itself is that, I always say it's at least 30% opportunity loss, but yeah, most people say it's more.
If you're listening and thinking this hits your store, smash that like button and share with your fixed op director or GM. They'll thank you later. Now, for our builder audience, let's go under the hood. What's empowering Evenflow? Is it constraint based optimization, reinforcement learning, or a hybrid?
I know your podcast anchors on AI, and AI is an amazing tool, but it's not the only tool. So the analogy I would use is, the wheel is one of the best inventions ever, but we still needed a lever and a pulley, right? So, AI is an amazing invention, but we need other mathematical frameworks. So we deploy a lot of different things, optimization techniques, just even rule-based approaches, other branches of mathematics that like is sort of the right tool for the right purpose there. But if I were gonna like simplify it all down, like from an optimization standpoint, like Henry Ford pioneered it in automotive, right? Like of how do you maximize the output of a factory? Well, here in the factory, you can control the inputs. And so that's an optimization technique. What was missing from this world is the prediction of the true demand. So I don't know my inputs when I'm loading the shop because I don't know how long your car's going to take or if
Right.
who's the next customer that's going to schedule 5 minutes from now. So I have to predict all that to get my inputs to then optimize the factory. So it's kind of that mix and match of the prediction plus the optimization.
That's amazing. Definitely mind blowing. Integrations are messy. DMS, parts, advisors, techs. What was the hardest nut to crack for your engineers?
So there's kind of two things. One is in our own side and then external. So external from the integrations, like integrations with the DMS. Well, I won't say that it's without its challenges. It's like it's the second stream integration that like so we integrate with the DMS and maybe the lane tool is in the DMS and making sure our stuff goes to the lane tool appropriately. That's a hard technical troubleshooting because we lose control in that. So that's something that we're
Got it.
continuously like trying to, fill in the gap. What from our side in our way, like the way one thing that I think about is like we're trying to automate the algorithm in the service manager's brain. And so if you think about how
Got it.
people make a decision, it's a rule, it's an optimization, it's a prediction, right? And it's a lot of complex stuff happening. And so all of our like algorithms and making sure that we're executing them in real time, that is a technical challenge to do it. Your brain does it like instantaneously. Like we got it coded in a way that makes it entirely flexible for each service manager's brain. So.
I get it. Dave, my background is variable. Like I'm in the sales side. My interactions with service are very limited. While you were talking about that, I was thinking the last time I interacted with my service team, it's generally like this. Like there's the garage, drive service lane. I'm usually just walking past and just like waving, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But and I've been in auto retail for 20 years. I haven't been blessed, of course, to get on the back end, but there's so much there. I didn't even think about scheduling, optimization, filling in. Yep. I understand every seat on the sales floor needs to generate X. I understand every lift in a garage must generate X. But that's the end result. And you guys are pioneering how to fill that to maximize every dollar. That's amazing. So you built a strong engineering team. Did you pull folks from auto or industries like airlines, logistics, healthcare?
I pulled people that had the right technical experience, but it's not industry context, I had from my other, ventures had a pretty good idea about how to solve this problem at in general, which got me kind of like somewhere between first base and second base, right? Like I wasn't on third base rounding home there, but this is what I found, and it's always been like true for my experiences though, is like we just got to talk to the customer. So a lot of the features are like how we, bring things together. It's literally me asking a question, opening up my notepad and taking notes of the service managers. Too often, I think over the years, they've never been asked, like, what do you want? Or, what's your challenges? So I just, I asked it, I listened, I took notes, and then I distilled, and then had the technical team to kind of bring it to life.
Before we started on the call, you mentioned you had a deeper conversation about AI you wanted to have. What was that specifically?
There's so much, hype and legitimate hype, but also, buzz and noise about it. And, I think the average probably person in the dealership has more concerned about feeling left behind, but not knowing exactly what to, use it for. And I think there's not often like an honest conversation about like, well, what's the purpose? What's the business problem that you're solving, right? And and I kind of go back to the analogy of like the wheel versus the pulley, right? Like,
yeah.
A wheel won't help me get a bucket of water out of a well, out that well, right? So it's like, but then that's going back to like, say, the service directors and service managers of like, well, what's your challenges or where are the opportunities? Yeah. And then determining where AI is like the right solution for, but not being like, restricted to that. And I think too often, like the conversation is just like AI this, AI that, and it's the wrong solution, to many problems. I'll give you another very simple example of like, I don't want AI to tell me whether I should go through a traffic intersection. I want a rule, right? Like if it's red, I stop. If it's green, I go. But I don't want something predicting that I can make it through. Like I don't need that uncertainty. Right? A rule's just, and I think that's the, into big picture. I think the markets will start to normalize with this, but right now it's like there's too much noise, or of like, look at this shiny thing, but it's like, does that actually generate value? And what problem are you
zero
solving, right? Like, and in some cases,
no value.
Yeah. And you can think about it even on your sales side, right? Like there are things that work really well that you're just doing through like rule base, right? And you don't need, there's no uncertainty about it, right? Like I know what that satisfies. I don't need AI to take over and try to predict what I already can say is yes or no. So I think it's just more conversation has to be about where is the right application of AI, and where does it generate the value?
I'm in agreement 100%. And audience, this is why we have these conversations. This is not a shiny thing. There has to be a human in the loop. That's the lever, not the wheel. Dave, you hit it spot on. For my fellow builders tuning in, if you like this peek under the hood, hit subscribe. Every week we bring in founders actually solving dealership tech gaps. Let's talk results. How long have you all been live in service drives so far?
Our first deployment went live in late 2021. And I'll just say candidly, like we got our first customer easy. And I was like, wow, this is going to be easier than I thought. And then the second one was a lot harder. So it is what it is. Yeah, so a lot of our dealers, like we're growing, but we've had dealers on the platform, for a couple of years now. So, a good cohort that's at least had that long.
Walk us through a dealer who went from chaos to flow using Evenflow.
I'll start with like the number one quote that we hear, right? Is in the industry, like fixed ops usually says like, well, we operate in controlled chaos, which I always say like, why? Like, like why is that like an acceptable situation? And then, our dealerships, our service managers, when we partner with them and dial it in, the number one quote we hear is that our days are significantly easier, and we just set a performance record. So they're doing a lot more, and the days are easier for them, and customers are happier.
I love that controlled chaos. Dave, us at car dealerships operate on dopamines and high heart rates. If your heart rate isn't high, you're not selling cars or closing ROs.
Yeah.
Thank you for being the person that helps us calm down.
Yeah, I think maybe the analogy I would say is like think of it you as a restaurant, right? Like you want to go into a restaurant that's busy and lots of moving parts, right? Because then if it's busy, you're like the food must be good because all the tables are full,
right?
But you don't want chaos. You don't want the chef and the wait staff yelling at each other or dishes breaking, and everyone scrambling around. Then you're like, I don't know what's going to happen to my food, right? So I think the dealership's customers want that like well-run operation that's busy, but it should feel almost like a library too at the same time, right? It's all under control. We got this, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a huge asset that they're touching, your car, right? It matters a lot to them.
Perfectly said. Now, you've mentioned advisors being overloaded, techs underutilized, and guests frustrated. How does the system rebalance all three?
One of the biggest insights or challenges that I kind of, being new, I didn't fully understand, but then it's kind of obvious once you dig into it, is like a mismatch of the advisors and the technicians. And stereotypically, you kind of load the, schedule today off of the service advisors of how much you can check in, right? And then, and the customer, I think this is a false bias, but a bias that customers only want to come in the morning. And so then you get this like mismatch of like demand to the capacity with the technicians. In my mind, that's kind of analogous back to my doctor's world. It's like, well, let's schedule the doctor's appointments based on how much the front desk person can check in the patient, right? Like
Yeah.
it's completely backwards, right? Like the doctor's doing the work. We should think about making their productivity, maximize. So the technicians, they're doing, not to, say that service advisors don't do the work. They're an important part of it,
Right.
but most of the time on task is the technician. So we need to really like optimize that productivity, and that's how you bill hours, and make money, or sell parts, right, is the technician work. So it's so fundamentally it's like understanding these are two different resources and then bringing them in together to say this is our true capacity, and it's that, like, bringing that together that's been missing. It's usually just been the advisors. How many can you check in? I can do one every 15 minutes. Well, that might have loaded the shop like 20 cars too many at a pace that's like, has people sitting around in the morning and then, nothing in the afternoon.
You mentioned mismatching advisors and technicians. Can you explain more on that one?
I'll just take an extreme example, right? Like imagine if you had 20 technicians, right? But you had only one service advisor. The service advisor can only check in, say, 3 cars an hour and they're working 8 hours. Well, then they can only take in 24 vehicles, right? And then you got
Right.
20 technicians, and
Yeah.
the technicians can do a lot more work than that. You've got like a resource imbalance issue there. And so usually it's not that extreme, but it can create
Yeah.
bottlenecks of like, how much can you take in the morning? What we do see is like simple examples of like, I have 10 technicians that start at 7 a.m. I only have 5 advisors, so I'm only taking 5 cars at 7 a.m. Well, what are the other 5 technicians going to do? They're just going to drink coffee and wait for the next round of cars, right? So it's like
Yeah.
some basic mismatch of resources there that exists. But we try to bring that all together and shine a light on it when there's a mismatch. So for the service manager then can maybe change things around with staffing to get it in balance.
Revenue wise, what's the average lift? Are we talking 10%, 20% or more?
Like I said, when the service manager leans in and works with us to configure it based on their algorithm. It's not us saying like, Michael, this is the way you got to do it. We're extracting their
Yeah.
algorithm. And when they like lean in
Yeah.
and work with us, we like consistently can get over 20% revenue improvement from it. Now, most of that is more from a unit production perspective. So we've shown that even without changing the number of ROs. It's just that we're balancing out the flow of the workload, in a way that the team can just pull through more. It's higher hours per RO, dollars per RO, and you're getting that 20% lift there.
Have y'all thought about moving this into like PDI or areas when cars are coming off the truck to help that PDI manager manage that workflow from when the vehicle hits the ground, checking it in, putting keys on, etc.?
Yeah. So we're starting to touch other use cases in like just like partially, right? Like so sublet is
Right.
an example where and how do we manage that? How do we, as you said, how do we balance in the internal workload for the PDIs? And then a little bit more of a bigger gravitational pull is all the recon work with used cars and how you get that done. So all of it is, again, it's some ways it's the same optimization problem. Like you only have so many resources that you can time on task of the vehicle, and you've got all these
Yep.
different sources of demand, and they have variable in demand of the importance.
Yeah.
So how do you
Yep.
balance that out in an optimal way to ultimately drive like bottom line profit for the dealership? Should you,
Right.
because it's a trade-off, right? Like I do these 5 PDIs. Well, is that a consequence of taking maybe, 2 customer pay ROs? So what's the better, balancing act there? But we're getting pulled more and more in this. And I think if you were to, talk to me a year from now, I would have like a much more expansive answer about that. We're definitely
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about at work right now. There's tons of automobiles just waiting to be checked in. service has always been reactive. Do you see a future where AI makes it proactive, predicting demand, flagging bottlenecks before they happen?
I feel like you must have been listening in on my internal calls and because this is this is definitely where we're going, and we've got like building blocks to it, and where I'm ultimately putting it is I think a super exciting agentic AI use case, and I would call it demand smoothing. So it's what I would say is a lot of these things that are pulling in like open recalls or even your traditional digital marketing on like fixed side, right? Like you're generating demand, but uh, it's just like it's peanut butter demand, right? Like, and it's not
Yeah,
tied to the shop loading. Where do you want it, right? And so if the day after Thanksgiving the shop is slammed because that people have day off, like I don't need to drive demand to that day, but on that next Tuesday where everyone's back at work and no one's thinking about servicing their car, like I should be driving demand to that day, right? And so it's just being
right,
really intelligent about where you try to pull that in based on the shop loading current state, and that's dynamic, right? Like, because like I said back in the
right.
beginning, like Monday's busier than Tuesday, but not every Monday, right? So you got to know, like, this point in time, where are you sitting from a demand perspective?
Dealers, if you're listening right now and you know your shop is leaking dollars, click the like and share this with your service director today. This is the exactly the conversations they don't want to hear, they need to hear. AI is everywhere. You and me talked about this. It feels like a lot of shiny bolt-ons. Why is now the time to fix the foundation and fix ops?
Well, this narrative I think is well understood in the industry, right? Like with the compression, always the compression of margins on the
Yep.
sales side, right, and the variability of that. One dealer owner said it really well to me. He's like, I sell two things, cars and technician time. And technician time is my
Mm,
product that I can get high margins on. So,
mm.
and there just hasn't been enough, I think, focus to solve the challenge there. So this is such a critical, profit driver that, there's just big opportunity. Yeah, I'm excited to help the dealers with it. So.
So the big question is this about dealers protecting margins as EVs change service revenue, or is this about survival period?
I probably just put it more simplistic or more like general of like they have an investment in resources, right? How do you
Mhm.
get the most out of it? So, and there is a belief that the industry is too short on technicians, right? And so,
Yeah,
and I probably that's true, right? But the question back is like, are you getting the most out of this team that you have today? And going back
right.
to what we said of the 70% revenue potential, I think before you hire that next technician, maybe think about like all the people already on staff. Am I getting everything I can out of them? And that can evolve over time of like, well, EVs, become, big. What does that look from a service standpoint? But like still fundamentally, they're always going to have like a team on staff. They have invested in base. How do you maximize that, revenue potential from that investment in resource?
Yes, when you were speaking earlier, first thing that did go through my mind was a shortage of technicians. You're right. I'm on the front, in the front end. I really don't notice it too much. Really, what I notice is when I see toolboxes and tow trucks.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a bad thing, of course, but it's part of the business. So keep on what you're doing. This is fire. I think I I feel down the road you guys are gonna just makes sense to so many folks because yes, margin compression is what we always have our eyes on. But what I hear mostly, what I love about y'all is customer experience.
Yeah.
It feels like you're freeing up a service advisor's time to develop a relationship with a service customer.
Yeah.
I personally believe AI, that is the human in the loop part of, a bigger picture. We get to be authentic.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, AI helps me AI even helps us do this, for instance. It's freeing up time. I didn't have to create this big old long script. You said it's like I'm reading your mind. Guess what? I didn't, but my LLM did. And there you go, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for breaking this down for both dealer operators and the builders in the audience. For everyone watching, if you got value from this conversation, smash that subscribe button. It's free, and it tells the algorithm that these dealer first conversations matter. Drop a comment below. What's the number one bottleneck in your service drive right now? That's where the real conversation begins. If you're a dealer or vendor looking to pilot AI solutions like Evenflow, join our Automotive Intelligence Pilot Program. David, how does anybody reach you? I want that phone to blow up. How do they find you?
They can email me or call me directly. My email is dave.a at evenflow.ai, and my phone number is 312-241-8536, and happy to connect. I'd be excited to talk to you.
Definitely. And I'm going to have the Evenflow contact information, Dave's LinkedIn in the description. So please look for that. David, huge thanks for coming on What the Prompt. Final prompt, if a GM or service director is listening right now, why should they take your call this week instead of kicking the can down the road?
They're every day they're losing, the revenue leakage, right? So if I wait another week, I lose another week's worth of money. It's like you've just left the gate with empty seats on the plane. One more week. Like, why wait? You should just fill these up.
Thank you, David. This was What the Prompt. Remember, the future of auto retail isn't about survival. It's about designing for what's next. We'll see you in the next episode.